Hi, it's time to start the wings. So I've cut the ribs out, notched the ribs, produced the spars using the stripper tool, and after some thought I've decided how I'm going to tackle this. It's quite a challenging build because of the degree of undercamber on the wing ribs themselves. You can see there, it's quite a lot. So what I'm going to try and do is, I've pinned down the rear section and these are notched, and there are triangular gussets for the rear part of each rib, and that'll add substantially to the strength. It isn't glued here. This is one of the dihedral break points and it'll remain unglued, but I want to build the whole wing as a one and then cut them apart at this point. So that's already cut. The spars I'll cut. The ribs won't be glued to one another at this stage, and this one of these ribs won't be glued in because I need to set the angle for the dihedral. This is held down at the front end, this lower spar. I have a fixing point here and a fixing point with this built up tip. It's actually 10mm, 6mm, 4mm. So obviously that's going to be shaped to form a nice profile. I had thought about packing up underneath here for the spars, but I think that's going to be very difficult and the end result wouldn't be what I was after. So I'm going to try and put as much on the model as possible before I lift it and then put the lower spars in last. So there's the spruce main spar and there are two balsa spars here on the upper surface, and I think I'll also glue the leading edge in before I lift it. Flip it over, carefully put in the lower spars, then make the cuts and the dihedral break. So the first thing to do is to get this glued down, and what I'm going to do is just jump around. I'm not going to work from one end to the other because I want to ensure that everything squares as I go along. If I leave it all till the end, I'm worried that I might creep out slightly. So I'll do this middle one, perhaps this one here, and then jump back and forth. I'll do a little bit of that and then we'll pause it and I'll come back when I'm ready for the next stage. So here's the first one. Let's line it up. Make sure it's square. And I'm going to zap this with super glue because I don't want the thing wandering all over the place. Once things have settled down, I'll add the later spars with some Gorilla Glue. So let's see if we can put this one in place, get nice and square. I think you get the idea. I'll pause it there and then come back when I'm doing the next part of the wing build. Well, there we have it. That's the stringers, the first three stringers added. I noticed there was an error here in this profile, hence the bits of packing in there to make up for the gap. Not a big deal. The hammer, believe it or not, is there to hold everything nice and flat. These two ribs here haven't been glued into anything because that's one of the dihedral break points, and this root rib A also hasn't been glued in because it's a break point, and I believe that actually it's in two halves, and these are in two halves because there's a plywood former goes in there. So that's to look at. I'll add the leading edge and I'll put these gussets in, and then I'll give it a good break to set. I've mainly used the super glue, so that's not an issue, but I do want to touch in, that's just to spot it and hold it, and I'm going to touch it in now with some white glue, some Gorilla Glue, into all the joints so it seeps in and makes it good and tough. Very interesting looking wing. I think it's going to be a nice looking model. I've got plans for how it's going to be covered, which is a bit different to anything I've ever tried before, but that's quite a way down the line. I'll pause there, time for a coffee break. Coffee time finished. Just enjoyed watching a Cliff Harvey building series on his DH2, beautiful model, and now it's time, this has had time to dry, to lift this and have a look at the underside regarding adding the last of the spars. So let's see how it's gone. See if my theory of using wax paper is better than using cling film. This section isn't glued, nor is this or this, but the spars are obviously complete at this stage. It's still stuck to, oh, that's not too bad. Certainly no worse than the cling film. Obviously I'm pulling it apart here. Let's run a blade underneath and then I can pull off the wax paper later on. It's well stuck here. It'll maybe, oh no, that's okay. There you go. Didn't sound good. There you go. So flick it over, have a look at the underside and start adding those spars. An interesting design, very interesting. Okay, next bit to come. Spars underneath have now been glued in place. These central ribs and this rib here haven't been glued to the spars, they're loose although they're a tight fit, and that will enable me to set the dihedral brakes. So there's a dihedral brake here and a dihedral brake here. It needs to be webbed between the spars up to this point, and the next video that I'll do, I'll have completed the other wing, and what I'll show is me setting up the dihedral angles, and that'll complete the wings project. I think it's a rather elegant looking wing. Once it's all cleaned up, it'll look very nice. The spruce spars obviously help enormously in terms of strength, and I'm sure that under camber airfoil will give great lift in thermals if we have a summer next summer. So bye for now. I hope you enjoyed that little process. If you have, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe, and then you'll see the next stage of the build. If you can get flying, get flying. If you can't, then let's get creative and do a little bit of model making. Bye for now.